why don't you? This is Raul, um, and he's in which part of Brazil, Raul?
I am in Minas Gerais. It's the southeast of Brazil.
Okay,
It's the state. It's a state. It's a pretty large state in Brazil. It's next to São Paulo.
okay.
Um,
And you
so
in we've known each other many years.
yes,
Now you were in, in this video. Just want to talk a little bit, Raul, about some of the experiences of what you saw with inflation, and I know you were a lot younger. Actually, he's older than he looks. You still look pretty good, mate.
but I do remember some of the things that happened back in the 90s.
Yeah, so
If you know,
why don't we start there, because I think a lot of people don't have a frame of reference for inflation. Um,
yeah,
it's something that is gripping. It's a slow death. It's coming into our economy. It's here. Whether or not
yeah.
people see it or not, I think the government is very good at hiding it with things like, oh, we've got supply chain issues. Oh, we've got, unemployment or employment, whatever. They lie. They just lie.
One thing that you'll never see, you're not going to see the government or people in power take responsibility for anything that is going wrong. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's get that out. Let's just get that out of the way. You will never ever see someone actually say, "Oh, okay, this is why uh, things are happening." They will always try to either just you know explain it when things are going bad and just shift it to create a story behind it,
Yeah.
or they will transfer the blame to someone else.
Someone
That's
else,
what's
yeah.
happening. Yeah,
And
they would.
that's what we're seeing. And I think under the covering of COVID, I mean, COVID has
Yeah,
fueled this, but under the covering of COVID, um, inflation is bad. I was saying to someone the other day, look, vaccinations are kind of irrelevant, really, because I said if hungry people will do anything, and
yeah,
a lot of these people, the toughest anti-vaxxer, you cut his food supply off, and he'd be the first one
yeah,
lined up, bending over for the needle. So
yeah,
vaccinations are not really. It's a bait and switch. It's the real issue here that I believe we all need to prepare for is inflation, and it's going to make a difference in the way we live. It's going to affect the way we live, our standard
yeah.
of living, and we don't have a
Oh yeah.
frame of reference for what that looks like. So I kind of wanted to go back with you, Raul, in time to the 90s when Brazil had the Cruzeiro. And then I
Yeah.
know overnight, just for our listeners, overnight the Cruzeiro was um, closed, or whatever,
Yeah.
and the Real came up. But give me a sort of a snapshot of the Cruzeiro times. What caused the Cruzeiro to crash? What? Not, I don't want to
Okay.
get into the government of it, because ultimately this is
Yeah.
just
Well,
broadcast.
I'm not an expert in I'm not an expert in economics and none of that. Okay, but I'll just give you a perspective from someone that had to live through it
That's what we want.
and experienced the day-to-day effects of hyperinflation. That's the name of the
Yeah.
dragon.
The scary name.
Okay,
Everybody
but
doesn't want
I'll
to
give
mention.
you. Yeah, let me just start by sharing, just like how things started. Okay. We had, like, what people must understand that inflation is like probably that's where we are seeing now in the beginning of a cycle. I think it's a cycle of inflation. It starts off like you said in the beginning of our conversation. You see things going up, and you see the government and the people in position of power trying to hide it, So that's when you start feeling like, this, I call it the small numbers, like the 20% increase, the 30% increase, or the 50% increase on things, or even a double, of price. But in that stage, you will still hear excuses and cover-ups and but there will come a time there you can't hide the fact that your money is melting, that the money is deteriorating, that your buying power is just vanishing by the minute. Okay. So in Brazil, what happened, Scott, is that in the 70s, all throughout the 70s, we had uh, irresponsibilities of spending. So, and people should know, understand that
Oh, yeah.
inflation is the direct byproduct of overspending, of irresponsibility, of printing money. People just, I don't know, money is not created out of the air. Once you
Yeah.
stop printing money and you start making money, you will pay the price. And that's what Brazil did. During the 70s, we had inflation controlled, quote unquote, on the 20 to 30 to 40% um, a year. That's crazy already. If you think
Yeah.
about it, I mean, you have $100 in the January.
Yeah.
That same $100 will be worth $60 buying power by the end of the year. So
We're
the
already in
70s
that.
were like,
We're already in that here and in the US.
yes, yes, absolutely. Everywhere around the world, some places are worse, but I think that's where we are now. That's where we are now, and it's getting uncomfortable.
Yes.
People are already feeling it,
Yeah.
but that's just the beginning. That you gotta understand that this is just like a hint. This is just like a small picture of what really hyperinflation is. Okay, so what happened was by 1980s and the 80s, this had grown to 240 to 300% a year. So we jumped from 40 from the 70s to 300% a year. That means that your $100 in January is worth less, 300% less by December. You couldn't buy, if you had $100, I'm just giving you an example, in
Yeah.
January,
Yeah.
all right? By December, you had to borrow another $200 to buy the same thing.
Wow. Yeah.
So you had $100, and let's say you had $100 and you could go to the supermarket and buy a 15-day or 10-day worth of supply. Okay.
Yeah.
In 12 months, you would have to borrow another 200 to buy the same 10-day supply. So that's
Yeah.
a 300% inflation. That's how it feels like.
Yes.
And this is just, I'm giving you an example of practical thing, but this starts to creating psychological effects on people. One of them is your life starts to become urgent every day. You have a sense of urgency, and life becomes like a rat race,
Yeah.
like a run in the treadmill. Because you know that when you receive something, you get some money, you have to run and do things before your money melts or your buying power melts in your hands. So it's like the population things become so frenetic. Like you would get some money and you have to run to the
Francis.
supermarket on the same day because you will know that by Monday, if you got paid on Friday, by Monday, you have already lost 30 or 40% of your money.
Wow.
And you know that, you know how what that makes to people? It makes people like in a constant state of how do I put it? You're always thinking about what to do with your money every day.
Yes.
Okay, so let's say you owe me some money. I would be on the phone with you every day, like twice or three times a day, asking you to pay me. Because by the time you decided to pay me, your money, what I actually gave you would worth nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the amount of stress that this life of inflation imposes on people, it's unbelievable.
What?
It's unbelievable. Um,
And that
so
was the
by the
Crusario.
1990s, and that's when I do remember, that's my generation, we
Yeah.
had over 2,850% inflation a year.
Wow.
So remember, 40% in the 70s, 300, 400 in the 80s, and now in the 90s, it is escalated to 2,850% a year.
Wow.
All right. So
Yeah.
you do the math. It's over 200% a month.
Yeah.
So that means on the first day of the month, you would get paid. By the end of the month, you would be 200 and some percent behind. I mean,
Wow.
your money would worth nothing. You would actually owe money if you kept the money.
Yeah.
So it was crazy, and this creates all sorts of problems. You know, we start seeing the government come up with these crazy plans. Every week we had these packages. They call it packages, economical packages,
Yeah.
and some bizarre things. I mean, when I say this, when you are experiencing the extreme, people will try and experiment the extreme to solve the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you become like this laboratory for ideas, right? So yeah, well, you are in an extreme harsh setting. So no one really knows how to fix it. Once you hit that spot, once you hit that place, I mean, nobody will come up and say, "Oh, I have a solution for this." If the solution was known, nobody would even allow to get to that point. So
Yeah.
you become, the economy and the country and everything becomes like a laboratory. So every week we would see some kind of plan. I remember one of them, uh, and it all involves changing currency. So we had like 5 or 6 different names of the currency. Like we had Real, Real Novo, Cruzeiro Novo, jabs, punches, uppercuts. The joke is that cruzado, the name is a hook. If you
Okay.
translate, we had jabs, uppercut, cruzados, which is a hook. Uh, and one of them, I remember, this Ministry of Economics, he just was nominated. And he said, "Oh, we have a package." And what he did, he's confiscated all the money that were in the bank. Said, "Oh, okay, nobody is has money. Nobody has money. You don't have money. All you have is an allowance. So everybody will have a monthly allowance. I don't remember. It's like 50,000 reais. I don't remember but and we are going to freeze the price, and we're going to give you everybody this same amount of money. And we're going to do this for 2 years, so we stabilize the economy. So you have these guys that, okay, I have 50 employees and I only have 50,000. What do I do with them? So you so you had guys waking that woke up on a Monday and said, oh, they went to the bank to make payments or to buy supplies or to pay their employees, and said, oh, I only have 50,000 on my bank account, because they froze the money from the
Yeah.
enterprises and the people, the regular people. So the government pretty much said, oh, you don't need to pay them. We'll give them a little bit of money.
Yeah.
So this created a massive, like a massive chaos, right? You had people from other countries that said, what's going on in Brazil? We lend money to people in Brazil. How are we going to get paid? So one thing leads to another. So and then when this guy, this Ministry of Economic, saw the effects and the monster that he has created, he kind of backpedaled. Oh, okay, we'll make adjustment. So these people don't have a clue of how to fix things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
if I had a clue, you wouldn't be there to begin with, would you? Like you said.
Yeah, and all these tries and all these attempts of bringing a solution just creates more and more chaos to it. So you have to understand, once hyperinflation hits wherever you are, the country where you live in, you will see massive social chaos. It will spill all over. I mean, it's not an economic problem. It starts out with an economic problem, but it will spill to in all areas of people's lives. I mean, you had people literally, Scott, running. I'm literally saying this, running. Hello, Scott?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay. Your image froze. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay,
the
you
image
had
freezes,
people.
but I keep hearing
I wish I could. I wish I could share some pictures or some videos, but you can go on YouTube and just put hyperinflation.
Yeah, just give your
80s
experiences.
Brazil.
Your experiences are fine, Raul. Just give your experiences.
Yeah. Well, what was common for me, my mother used to say, okay, on the night before, she would give us like 20 reais or 20 cruzados, 20. And she said, I'm going to put the alarm clock to go off around 5 a.m. And you need to leave the house by 5:15 because the bakery will open at 6, and you need to be on the line. If you would arrive at the supermarket or the bakery or anywhere to buy food, let's say the place would open at 6. If you arrive, for example, half an hour before it opened, you would be about 30 or 40 minutes down the line already to buy anything.
Wow.
Okay, so she would say, okay, I'm going to put the alarm to go off at 5:15. You need to be there at 5:20, because by 5:20 you still get a reasonable place in line to buy when they open at 6. And this would be common. This would be common for anything, for bank. So you get paid, you'd have to go to the bank and put your money, cash your check, and put your money on some kind of hedge for, we would call it overnight. So the bank would say, oh, cash your check and run here because we have this investment that will protect your money from deteriorating overnight. That's how crazy it is.
Wow.
So if you did not cash your check and went to the bank and cash the check and put it on this banking investment overnight, by the next morning, your money would be worth less, around 40 or 50%.
Wow.
So imagine, Scott, people's lives. You have all your life is rotating and gravitating around this, running in this, and these things that you have to adjust on your daily things. Aside from working, aside from being sick, going to the hospital, taking kids to school, whatever it is, you had to include all this crazy routine, so your money would not lose any power overnight or over a span of hours. Okay, so this is I cannot even speak to the people that live right now in Australia, America, or Europe, or countries that has never seen anything like this. You know,
Yeah.
you it will be, if this really comes down the way we are seeing coming down the pipe, for and it is coming, guys. It is coming. All the signs, I see, all the things are in place that this is down the line, and it's not far.
Mm.
And people that have never experienced anything like this, it's gonna sting. It's gonna hurt.
You know what I'm going to say there, though, Raul, if I can just interrupt for a second. I want you to keep just giving an example of what it is, but what we are about here is solutions. And so we're just addressing, telling people what the problems are. And if not in this podcast, in the next podcast or whatever, we'll talk some more, and we'll be going to be talking solutions, things that we can do to safeguard our families' mental health,
Yes.
spiritual health. You know, I know, Raul,
Yes.
you had nothing to do with chickens your whole life, and you just ran a chicken farm. You started from nothing, really. So we're going to have you talk about some of the things that have happened, that have provided, but let's pick it up where so your Crosarios were the last currency, and basically everybody went to bed one night. I guess the government I heard the government keeps adding zeros. So all of a sudden, if your highest note was a $100 bill, they print a $500 bill. Then they're printing $1,000 bill. Then and so anyway, you went to bed one night with the Crosarios. You wake up the next day after an election, and it's all gone. The whole complete currency reset of the country, right? And
Yeah,
and then the real came in. So why don't you pick it up there? What happened there?
yeah. Well, like, I'm just want to pick up where you said solutions, right?
Yeah.
And the good thing, well, if there's a good thing in this type of environment, is that there's a saying, Scott, that hard times and difficult times brings out good in good people, and it will
Yeah.
obviously bring out bad in bad people. But there are some things that only happens during the hard times, right?
Mm.
And people start becoming more creative. Once you are put in a spot that you have to learn how to protect, or how to do things uh, to improve your situation, uh, you have only two choices: or you fold and you roll and you get swollen by everything, or you somehow
Survive.
start survive. Yeah, surviving is a very strong instinct, and I believe that God has put that in man so that we can overcome. And life pretty much, this is my opinion, Scott. Life's pretty much here while we are here. It's not a comfortable thing, we're here, and things can change, and things do change. Those people that try to hang on too much to a certain situation for too long, they are the ones that have the most hard time when things shift. When the when the when things under their feet start moving, they don't know what to do. And hyperinflation, it's a constant uh, type 20 or type 100 treadmill run.
Everything's moving. Everything's
And
moving.
fast. And fast. It's not like a walk in the park. The treadmill is running fast. So you have to jump on. So that's what hyperinflation does. It makes things go really fast
Can I
under
say,
you.
Raul? Can I say, Raul? Sorry, on the solutions thing. A lot of people here. We just had the epic in Australia, the freedom protests, rallies that have been going on, and people came into that camp. And that's the spirit, I believe, that I've lived for 20 years. You've known me for 20 years. And I've lived that for 20 years. The creative economy. And in that creative economy at Epic, and I saw it in New Zealand, it's happening in America, in Canada. People just came together in community, took care of each other, and it was a beautiful move of God. And
Yes.
that is our answer right there. But sorry, keep going, because there is a lot
Yes.
that we can. There is a lot that we can prepare to do spiritually and mentally to get there.
Yeah, and I think you touched on the key word here, creative.
Yeah.
Things that is not. It's like someone said, you can look at a tree and just see a tree. Other people, depending on what they are experiencing, what their needs are, they're going to look at a tree and they're going to make a table and they're going to make a chair out of that tree.
Yeah,
that's creativity, and hyperinflation did a lot of that on people. It took out creativity. People saw their situation and all this negativity of how money melted and stuff like that, but they saw opportunities. They started to see how they could get out of it.
Don't see problems, see solutions.
Yes. Okay, it might take time, it might take some suffering, but people will look for solutions to get out of their situation. Right? So, speaking on the economics of Brazil, so what happened was there was this plan. Okay, it's called the Raul plan, which was a pretty clever plan. What they did, they did something very simple. They said, look, guys, what we need to do is this: we need to balance our spending. We need to fix our spending. Okay, we overspent over 30 years, and we need to start paying some of this debt. And how we're going to do this? We're going to talk, because hyperinflation, like I said, there's a why behind it, right? So this president said, look, we're going to sit down, we're going to address the real problem, which is our debt. We owe a lot of money, and we are going to make a plan and make a commitment to pay this debt. And how we're going to do this? We are going to sit down with our creditors, our major creditors, and we are going to tell them, look, we are committing to pay you, but we need you to help us do that. You cannot allow us to be in this rat race. Otherwise, it's not interesting for you, but it's not interesting for us. So what the government did, he is like we do when we are in a situation that we wanted to address it, but we don't know how to, but we have to go to the source and say, look, Scott, I owe you some money. I want to pay you. But in the position where I am right now, I cannot do it because my money does not have any power so I can pay you. So what the government did, they went out and they called their creditors and they said, look, we want to pay you. And in order for us to pay you, our currency needs to be strong again. We need a strong currency. So they came with this Real plan. What they did is they made the Real like the dollar. They put the same value of one and one. And I said, wow, now your money is worth something. Okay, I don't want to get into the details because that's not my specific area.
Just do the overview.
But what they did is say, look, we're going to pay you, but we need a strong currency. So they dollarized the real. So instead of making 5 million cruzeiros, you would make 20 reais a day. But that 20 reais really worth $20.
Yeah.
So you knew what you had. So, and that was an interesting, clever idea for the creditors outside of Brazil, all these banks and all these, you must be familiar. Brazil owed so much money for the international fund, monetary fund.
Yeah.
Yes, they owned Brazil. They pretty much owned Brazil for 3 decades. And they too saw like that if they did not allow this plan to thrive, they would never get paid. Brazil would just say, look, you know what? We're not going to pay you.
Yeah.
So there was some interest on these creditors' part to say, okay, we'll buy in on this plan. You can dollarize your currency. So this was a clever idea and plan by this guy called Fernando Henrique. He's the father of this plan. So things kind of like it created a lot of problems. Yes, it did. I mean, not many people were happy with that because Scott, if there's chaos on the street, a very small percentage of the population is making a lot of money. And they do not want to change the status quo of that, okay? So this created like problems with the elites because, it would change how things were for 30 years. I mean, we had 30 years of inflation, escalating inflation. But, to make this long story short, since the 1990s, mid-90s, we kind of crawled out of this abyss, this massive hole.
Now you're going back in there.
Now I see that we climbed in, and there's another hole right after. Scott, it's that cyclical human behave that we don't learn. When we're doing well, we don't kind of like learn from looking back. We start making the same mistakes. It's that same like.
I think what's going to happen here, Raul, it's the same similar thing. I think as the government's, our money disappears, they'll nationalise a lot of the debt. I think here in Australia we have a social welfare thing called Centrelink, which gives out benefits and free medical and things like that. I think they'll nationalise a lot of the debt on houses into Centrelink, and then everybody will be on Centrelink. And then ultimately they'll plough the currency under and come in with a new currency. It'll become a one world currency or something. But they've got some sort of plan, I'm sure, that's in the background already that they're playing out. But to get the people to accept it, you have to bring the people to their knees. And that's why I don't think COVID is the real issue here. I think the real issue is they are planning to use the currency to bring people to their knees. And when people are hungry, and you lived it, bro, when people are hungry, I know recently you told me there's people knocking on your doors asking for food over there. Because when people are hungry, they'll do anything. I think the Bible says that everything man does, he does for his belly.
Yeah.
So you'll swap your Mercedes Benz for a loaf of bread when you're hungry.
Oh yes. And Scott, what concerns me, and this is something that I've been praying about it, and I spent time thinking about it, is that Brazil was like an isolated sample back then. I mean, there were only 4 or 5 countries in the whole globe that had similar hyperinflation. like
Yeah.
Brazil did in the 80s and 90s. Only 4 nations around the globe, not even those poor nations in Africa experienced hyperinflation like we did. There were only like 4 different cases. I think Brazil,
Yeah.
Congo, Russia during the Cold War, the heat of the Cold War. But anyway, what worries me is that happened in Brazil in the 90s and 80s. It's coming on a global scale.
Yeah.
This is not going to be an isolated thing.
Now,
This is not going to be a Brazilian problem or a
I have
Venezuelan problem or
now you know him, and I won't mention his name just because he's not on the call, but probably one of my closest friends for the last 20 years, and you know him. He did that businessman's meeting for us in Boston one time. He, well, I can say his name's John. I mean, he used to work for the World Bank assessing countries for finances. He mixes with the top of the world with economics and things. And he said, no one's ever seen where we are on a global scale. But one of the things he was saying, which I think is quite pertinent, is he said, look, I think we're going to go in regions. He said, like, Australasia is going to be a region that will go, and I think this region will be first. Then, the US, South America, and just different regions. He said, ultimately, the whole block will go. Financially, the whole monetary system of the world will collapse, but it's going to go probably in regions. And we'll talk some more about that. I'll do another video. Maybe we can talk one night together on that one too, Raul, because there really is things that we can do that are proactive. Yeah. You know me, Raul.
Yes.
I've lived this for 20 years. I have not lived in a normal economy for 20 years. When I was in Boston, it was in a boom. And then I was in there for the subprime meltdown when it collapsed.
Yes.
And my standard of living never changed one little bit. Yeah. And you can only talk about what you've earned the right to talk about. And I believe that the 20 years that I've met him, you knew me where I'm going, God, why am I living like this? And I think it was for preparation for what's now. Now, in my book, which I don't have a copy in front of me, but in my book, there's a prophetic word at the start of that, which talks about this very stuff, what's happening in the state of the world and where we are heading into now. 10 years ago, that was said.
Yeah.
So I know.
No, I feel like that the spirit, or if you are listening to this video, you should be preparation for what's coming, and you are receiving a word before it really happens, and it will happen. So and this is actually an act of love, right, from God and from people that have heard this prophetic word. They're saying, look, you don't need to be in that mix. You can do things that will empower you to withstand the winds that are on the horizon. When they start blowing and blowing hard, you're going to be in a position where you can go through it, and not only go through it and survive, but help others. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, and
this is what it's all about.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. One of the things on what you were saying there that hit me is we don't act in fear, we act in faith.
Yes.
Now, people say, well, how do you act in faith? Well, the problem is when your faith is in yourself, you're going to act in fear because you don't have the answer. It wouldn't be in the problem.
Right.
So it's where faith comes in, and that's something that it's not religion. It's a separation from that, and that's something that we can address. But I think I lived the fear. I remember, you probably know the story. You're going to laugh, having set up a chicken farm. When I was in Boston, I decided I was going to be a prepper. The Americans call them preppers. I'm going to get ready for what's coming, the Armageddon, economic meltdown. Yeah. So I went and bought, with the kids, we bought 13 chickens. They were just little chicks. And the lady
Yes.
over there at Woolburn, she was like, I guarantee you there's probably not even a rooster in here. 13 of them. 11 of them were roosters. Roosters don't lay eggs, brother.
No.
It gave me a hard lesson. I realized what's coming. You don't know how long the inflation cycle is. You don't know. I know there's at least 3 years, I really believe, minimum,
Yeah.
and until we start seeing credible answers. But in that time, I think you can't
Well,
store
in Brazil
enough
was 30
food.
years.
3 years.
Put in perspective. For Brazil, it lasted 30 years.
Or 30 years. And Venezuela's over 20. They've been in it.
Yes. Well, it's a vicious cycle. You have to understand this enemy is not your average Joe type of thing. It's not easy to get out of it. Okay. Like you said, you said 3 years. I hope so.
I don't think it'll be done in 3 years, but I think in 3 years
Okay.
of chaos, I don't know. I'm basing that on nothing other
Well,
than
yeah.
a
Well,
thought.
what I'm saying is that if we can have any reference, when you hit a point of hyperinflation, it's not something that you can switch like a button or take a measure that will start going back. No, it's like a journey,
But
and
Raul,
it does. Yeah,
yeah, sorry, your journey. Finish what you were saying. Sorry.
it's a journey, and what we are saying here to people is that like you said, we don't act in fear. We're not bringing fear here. We're not just presenting these facts to create more anxiety. We're just saying that there is a good way.
We're just saying
And
prepare. It's
prepare,
already happened. It's already happened.
especially, and it has more to do with your spirit, has more to do with your soul, like how are you gonna handle, like how are you getting ready internally more than externally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the other thing, Raul, is you can't store enough food for 3 years. For a year. And if you do, that's what I tell people. I say, if you store all this food and everybody else in your neighborhood doesn't have any, guess who's coming to your house? The whole neighborhood. Because you're coming out all fat and plump like a fat little turkey, and they're all. If it got to that stage, people know. Plus,
just
end up with
people,
rats get in there, or mice get in there, or something spoils, it goes moldy, and you get nothing. That's not the answer. It is good to do some things, but the answer is the creative economy, and that's what this whole site and the whole series of what we're going to do is about.
Yes, creative.
The creative economy. Start it now before it's too late.
Exactly. And just remember, if there's a picture, you can put it in your head of what it is. If you want to associate it with an image, imagine someone running. That's what inflation times is. The ground is going to change under your feet by the minute. So don't try to store, don't try to hang on to things that it's stable. Creative economy it comes in this type of environment. It's Scott, it's amazing. It's a whole different mentality. How entrepreneurs, they think and how they act and react to things on them when they are moving fast. It's very easy to make plans. I mean, all the schooling, all the degrees, they teach you how to make plans in a setting that you can plan. But when things shift so quickly, so fast, it's going to need something different to get by.
You know what we're going to be talking about, Raul? We're going to be talking about bartering, how to barter. We're going to talk about how to buy and sell, short-term sales. You don't buy and hang on to it for 3 days, like 3 weeks. You buy and you flip it. One of the things I was telling someone about cars that was selling cars recently. Say they bought a car for $1,000 and they try to sell it for $5,000. I mean, they're just numbers. And then they couldn't sell it if they had to hold on to that thing for 6 months, 3 months to sell it. I said, you've got all your money, capital tied up in that car. I said, what you do is you sell it you'd be better off selling it for $2,000. And then getting your capital free, buying 2 more cars and selling those, and buying 2 more and selling those. And even though you're making less money, you're turning it over faster. When it comes, and we're going to do a series on that, because when you're selling, you never want to constipate the pipeline. You've got to keep it flowing because your capital has to be free. You don't want to hold on to it, because the longer you hold on to it, the less it's worth, and the less opportunity you've had to make things. And that's what things like that, which we have the practical experiences to talk about, because again, one of that closest friend he teaches entrepreneurship in one of currently in one of the world's renowned colleges for that. And that's something that we can talk a lot about. So I want to remove the word entrepreneur, because it makes it sound like, ooh, something big and fancy. Now, I'm going to call it mum and pop business. Something that we can do, home-based business that people can do that are essential, things that you have to get into business that's essential. If you're going to make flower pots, it's not essential. Nobody's going to care about it. You're going to go hungry. Yeah. But if you're a baker, if you're someone that can fix appliances, if you're someone that can train others to fix appliances, fix things like that, you're never going to go hungry. But anyway, no, that's not the final answer, but I'm saying it's all part of a creative economy, which I'm excited to be able to present to people. And I know you are too, because you've been living in as well. And I know when we first met, you weren't living it. I remember you sitting there going, Scott, how do you do it? I don't even know how to do it. You'd go off at me. And then I remember recently, in the last few years, you called me and you say, Scott, I'm living what you're living. and it's scary, but it's a lot of fun. Yes. And it is in our mindset, we're gonna impart, because the spirit's not taught, it's caught. We're gonna impart the creative spirit to people. Amen. To understand how to keep going. So I'm gonna get you back on again, Raul. But okay. You want to finish up with anything you want to say, just to sort of sum it up? And
well, I just want to thank the opportunity to be here. I'm glad to be part of this, and I'm excited as well, because although
of course it's scary.
We talked about some scary things, but it is an opportunity, and I cannot disassociate this. I believe we are living in special times as well. We're living in a prophetic time, so this is all a preparation for something bigger. Okay. Yeah. So you might be listening to this and not understand, but hey, just stay with us. The Spirit will
take the journey. Take the journey with us.
Take the journey. Let's take the journey together. So, Scott, I thank you. I enjoy talking to you every time I get encouraged.
And you too, Raul.
We can do this more.
All right, brother. I'm actually going to go to bed, because I did a call with Venezuela the other night, and to get them, it's in the middle of the night, and then here it's getting late. So I'll give you a call in the next day or two here, and we'll have some just catch up time. So,
okay, I'll see you, man.
Thanks again. God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless.